Gather round, younglings, as I regale you of a time from the long, long ago, in the practically prehistoric era of 1998, when, hot off the middling critical and commercial success of Clock Tower, Human Entertainment saw fit to release Vanguard Bandits. Actually, that title wouldn't release until the year 2000, when it showed up in North America, but that's besides the point. The point is that in a recent playthrough I did of Vanguard Bandits for a retro respect, nudge nudge wink wink, go watch that video, I got a bit inspired to take some of the knight-inspired mechs, or ATACs, into DS3 and see if protagonist Bastion can overcome the Soul of Cinder with his tools and skill set from his original game. In that case, howdy. I'm Prakuza, and welcome to DevBox, where today, in lieu of a proper challenge run, we're doing a bit of an RP playthrough for a slightly limited time through DS3. Because it turns out there's 1,000 ways to have fun in these games, and hey, we might still learn some stuff. Before we get into the run, let's go over the ATACs that will be dawning here, based on the 3 mechs that Bastion gets access to throughout Vanguard Bandits. First, we've got the Alba, a blue and white colored ATAC with a wide hammerhead helmet that uses a long sword in the right hand to slash, thrust, and attack in a few other methods. This will be our starting mech, and while we'll have to accept the Knight's gear set to showcase the weapon and armor at first, we'll get some more accurate stuff when the game starts to open up a bit more. Our second ATAC is the Ultragunner, a mostly white mech with some black and gold trimming. This one uses a much larger sword, though it often uses it in a single hand and gets access to some light-based attacks, which we'll treat as holy magic. Granted, in that case, it probably could have gotten closer to this one in Elden Ring, but I wanted to play DS3 today. Finally, we have the Tic-Tac, my personal favorite ATAC in all of Vanguard Bandits, that can be best described for having steely blue armor with coattails instead of your standard tassets. A fantastic mech design, I gotta say. This one will also use a greatsword type weapon that is capable of firing a blue beam from a distance. Some of you will already know where this is going, and yes, this is a flimsy excuse to pick up my favorite weapon again. So, on top of the gear we have access to, we also need to go over my available moveset. Specifically, the moveset available to Bastion when he pilots any of these ATACs. In some cases, he has access to some stuff that we'll never be able to do in DS3, like summon tornadoes or shoulder check enemies with a high damage but low accuracy tackle that can knock enemies over. In other cases, he can deal many basic attacks like a one-handed slash or thrust and a two-handed vertical slash. That being said, there's no two-handed horizontal swipe, and while the Ultragunner can do a two-handed strong thrust, the Alba can't. Which means that right off the bat, we can't use any R2s, which are extremely powerful and can stagger a lot of the enemies in DS3. So, fairly often, we won't have access to large parts of our DS3 moveset, more often than not, the R2s or strong attacks, especially the charged variants. On the beneficial side, however, Bastion can block, dodge, and even parry. So we have access to most of our defensive abilities, even if personally, I suck at parries in DS3. Let's get this run underway with Gundyr. Yeah, this is Gundyr without parry access though, because without being allowed a shield, I have to fully put my weapon away to parry, which is cumbersome and annoying, and I basically ignore it anytime that is the only option for parries. We're better off fighting normally anyway, to be honest. And in that case, it's Gundyr, so as long as we don't get caught in the second phase with our pants down, we're through on a first try, and this is pretty easily finished off. While we might not have access to our full moveset or best gear, Bastion here is doing pretty well making the shift from strategy to action RPG combat. Way to go. Now, if at this point you're wondering who the hell Bastion is, and what these ATACs are, then I have great news for you. Because over on the second channel, we've spent about 2 hours deep diving into Human Entertainment's Epica Stella, distributed by Working Design, yeah, I know, in 2000 as Vanguard Bandits, which I will claim without even 1 ounce of hyperbole is among the best strategy games on the PlayStation 1, if not the top. And yes, I say that after already making a video about Final Fantasy Tactics, my brother's favorite game, full stop. Sorry, Brian, but Vanguard Bandits has giant robots, 5 total endings, and the lead villain constantly makes this insane pouty face. I don't make the rules, I only assess the adherence to criteria. But, in all seriousness, if any of what I've said about Bastion so far is interesting at all, then go check out that video. It was a wild experience revisiting a game that I was never able to properly finish as a kid. Vanguard Bandits is one of those classic titles that deserves to at least reach cult status almost 3 decades later, much in the way human entertainment's most famous works like Clock Tower and Twilight Syndrome have earned now. Alright, ad read for my own video finished, let's get back to the Dark Souls stuff. With heading into Lothric proper. Up on the high wall, we're still looking for a proper gear set to emulate the Alba, but that won't be available until after beating Vordt. So, standard knight getup it is. Not gonna lie, it's actually kind of a good look. It's no Alva's set, but as the basic Protag gear, it might be the best in the trilogy. Anyway, let's get to Vordt and see how the basic longsword absolutely whoops the shit out of most of DS3. Moderate damage with a relatively high speed in comparison to other stronger weapons like greatswords and the such, which means that the overall DPS, as long as you're playing very aggressively, is pretty great. Pretty true to life for Vanguard Bandits in that realm actually, since playing very aggressively and hammering on the hits at any cost tends to be the best way to get through most encounters. The point here is that we can pretty quickly grind down Vordt by making sure that we keep our mobile meat grinder pushing into his guts as consistently as we can. With Vordt down, we've finally got some freedom of movement available in Undead Asylum. DS3's equivalent of the ability to explore through Darkroot, the Catacombs, and Undead Burg all at the start of the game. If you picked up the Master Key at least. You did pick up the Master Key, right? Anyway, we have a lot of reason to not stick around in Undead Settlement, and instead head directly to the Road of Sacrifices, or the Crucifixion Woods, whatever you want to call it. The difference isn't really all that important, and is only delineated by a single bonfire with no boss fight between the two areas. On the way, we pick up the Irithyll Straightsword from the Outrider Knight. This door really messes up the Outrider Knight's AI and is ripe for exploitation. And considering that he's extremely difficult, I will absolutely be exploiting the hell out of him every chance I get. The Irithyll Straightsword is a nice weapon that I haven't really gotten the chance to use for a while, which I'll now use to murder Henri for her armor. We also need to kill Horus in the process since he's now become hostile. This is how we get the Elite Knight armor early. And its blue and white motif is the closest we'll get to emulating the Alba in DS3. Of course, that doesn't actually help with the helmet, though. In that case, we need to murder Lenny for his hat. It's not perfect, but the blue of the Elite Knight armor plus the hat of the silver mask gives us the general color scheme and profile of the Alba's armor. We'll also soon be adding the cestus, or castus, I don't know how it's pronounced. We'll go with castus for now. We found in Undead Settlement to the left hand to allow for parries while holding the sword in one hand. Much better than needing to unequip the sword entirely in order to get a parry off. At this point though, we basically have our entire Alba set ready, and we can keep this going until we're ready to swap to the Ultragunner's gear and moveset. Now that we've gotten our gear, however, we can go back to the Curse-Rotted Greatwood. Gimmick fight gonna gimmick, and the Irithyll Straightsword is incredibly goated, so we get the kill quickly and easily. First try, moving on. At this point, we've also already done all of our exploring through Undead Settlement, Road of Sacrifices, and Farron Keep, picking up all of the Estus shards, Undead Bone shards, and other items that might help the build, like killing the Stray Demon for Havel's Ring, which will make all of our heavy armor and upcoming big swords less cumbersome. In that case, we can skip quickly to the Crystal Sage. For most builds, this can be a rough test of survivability, as the later phases have a habit of chain casting Crystal Soul Spear from all angles, and catching players, or me, in a kill box filled with magic. So, getting a first try kill here is absolutely welcome. Kind of a rare sight for me, in fact. As we head on to the Cathedral of the Deep, we go through our ordinary checklist, killing the starting NPCs, getting DLC access for later on, and almost fully exploring the whole cathedral for everything not nailed down, even though I really don't need much of what I find. Of course, once I die on the way to Rosaria, I give up on this unnecessary but habitual tendency of hunting down every shiny item and go fight the boss. Straight sword against the Deacons is fantastic. No surprise, I really do love this weapon, but haven't used it in years. The freedom that this run is giving me to pick pretty much any longsword with a pokey one-handed R2 is kinda nice. Anyway, since we can push the longsword meat grinder up into the big group of Deacons without much issue, we get another first try kill. Seriously, the Alba build has been kicking ass. I don't know if I've even died once. One of these days, I'll learn to shut my fat fucking mouth before these games absolutely slaps me around. Guess we'll have to accept a second try win on the Abyss Watchers. For the most part, the difficulty of the first phase comes from getting outnumbered, but granted that's obvious and the strat is equally so. Run around until Red Eye shows up and returns the fight to a one-on-one, which actually fits the RP since Bastion wins exactly 0 of the fights he has to do solo, and then we get some damage in against the main Watcher while his backup is down. Then, the second phase is back to a one-on-one, but many of the original attack opportunities have either become much more limited or will have become a collection of traded blows. In my case, I've pumped a decent amount of levels into my health, pretty par for the course when leveling Bastion and Vanguard Bandits in fact, so we can afford to trade a few blows and make it through the fight. We head next into the Catacombs of Karthus, and it's strange to not find Henri here. Oh. Right. Anyway, we open up the path to Smoldering Lake so we can save Greyrat. However, the Mimic and Demon refuse to fight each other. I take another couple of deaths because they refuse to duke it out for my amusement. Boy, that would be an evil statement if this wasn't a bunch of 1s and 0s. Back up in the Catacombs proper though, Wolnir gets another kill on me, because I misread the telegraph saying that he was about to do the crawl. There's a part of me that wanted to say that that's a bullshit attack that trapped me with no way to save myself, but like, we can all see him preparing for the crawl, and I still sat there trying to see if I could get the kill before he started rushing forward. It didn't work. Easy second try kill at least. No crawl means basically no threat from Wolnir. However, now as we rise out of the catacombs like the tomb below Melania Temple, we went down into the dark piloting the Alba, but arise with the Ultragunner. In truth though, we're going to need to kill a couple extra bosses with our Alba clothes, but we can be properly Ultragunnering pretty soon. For now, we're only using its weapon. I was tempted for a while to do the Lothric Knight Greatsword here, because it kinda looks the closest to Ultragunner's weapon, although the Eternus as displayed in Vanguard Bandits is kinda silly, with that skinny little breakpoint between the blade and guard. But instead, we're doing Wolnir's Greatsword, because it has a holy attack that is the most in line with the Ultragunner's moveset. We can't use any R2s as a result though. That ATEX skills don't include any of the powered horizontal slashes, though it does have some combos that we could technically link it into. Still, we're going all R1 and occasional L2 for now, either while two-handing in order to blast with our magical attack, or while one-handing to parry with our Caestus. Fun side note of having a left-handed Caestus, we can actually two-hand it and it kind of looks like we're walking around with our weapon sheathed. It works out pretty well in DS3 with a Caestus, in Elden Ring with any fist weapon, or the Dryleaf arts is the best, and even in DS2 with specific weapons like the Bone Claws. Great for aura farming. I fully suggest trying it out. Absolutely my favorite way to walk around any of these games, as if I'm not constantly ready to fight, but instead, I need to actually be primed by an enemy's aggression before I respond by defending myself. Next up, we head immediately to the Old Demon King. This pathing is to finish off Greyrat's questline. After having already saved Sigvard from the well Patches shoved him down and sending Greyrat to pillage an Irithyll, we need to get another optional boss that's specifically not Pontiff Sulyvahn in order for Greyrat to survive. We really don't need to do it, but I always go for finishing out his shop, so onward he goes. Into the Old King fight, we get some close calls, but altogether make it through on another first try. Nice to be getting those again, after 2 second try bosses in a row. We are running into a bit of a learning curve though. Trading from the Irithyll Straightsword to Wolnir's Greatsword is quite the change. We have gained some great per hit damage, but our speed has dropped dramatically. After making it this far, it takes a little getting used to in order to pick up the cadence of the new weapon, kind of an opposite effect from switching between the Alba to the Ultragunner, since that one is a raw upgrade, only offering new, more powerful attacks with 0 drawbacks. To better practice with the weapon, we prepare for our upcoming armor change to properly wield the Ultragunner by killing Creighton with Cirrus. Also, kill Creighton when he invades. Also, kill the Shadow of Londor because we killed Henri. Totally forgot this guy would invade, to be honest. There we go. By now, I should be well and used to the weapon. Time for the next boss, Pontiff Sulyvahn, the toughest bastard this side of the DLC. Or, if you know the parry strat, then Pontiff Sulyvahn becomes a bit of a joke. Yeah, we really flex on him, to be honest, since we're backhanding his blade with my bare fucking hand. Okay, to be fair, I'm backhanding it with a Caestus, but still, no shield, no weapon on weapon deflection, a simple bitch slap, and a stab to the gut. Hot damn. Keeping those first try kills going, even with a new weapon on Pontiff. With Sulyvahn dead, we can even try that parry strat against the NPCs in Anor Londo. It's finally happening, guys! I'm actually getting good at parries in DS3. It only took 10 fuck-ass years. Oh, and yeah, also kill Aldrich. First try, again, nice. After Aldrich is done, we can now help Cirrus kill Hodrick for his armor. Most of the sunset gear is of little use to us, but I do want his helmet, since it's one of the only options to give us the unique pointed tip of the Ultragunner's headpiece. Kind of an armored version of the capirote, evoking the symbol of a crusader or Templar knight. To finish off the Templar armor, we farm the Fire Witches in Irithyll for their chest piece. Though this is a bit of a temporary solution to get us properly Ultragunnering with this all-white armor set. This is pretty late into the run though, so I guess we're on the Empire path? Didn't think I was that good at the start, but I guess some first-time kills earns me the cool optional path. For more information on what that joke means, go watch the Retro Respect. Well then, let's take this gear and try out a real boss, like Yhorm, who I'm only allowed to fight with Wolnir's greatsword. No grabbing that Storm Ruler in the quarter, that wouldn't be true to the roleplay. However, what is true to the roleplay is to call in some help, and in this case, that means we get Sigvard to help with Yhorm the Giant, because Bastion doesn't win any fights on his own. The 2 that he tries to do solo go very poorly if he doesn't have friends backing him up. So, this Bastion won't be turning down the help of his friends either. Also, fuck non-Storm Ruler Yhorm. On to Dancer. You know, I really shouldn't be surprised that heading through the game with real armor and a fantastic magical weapon means that most bosses are a bit of a breeze, but I expected Dancer to be at least a little bit more difficult than this. Barely even any panic throughout the fight. No real rush of adrenaline. It's going through the motions. Elegant, flowing motions as Dancer does, but still not quite the impassioned battle that I normally get when running through this game with a broken straight sword or a bow. First try kill. Up into the castle proper, this part gets kinda rough, but probably because I'm rushing, not because the build is good or bad. Honestly, the build is goated. No access to range or fire does make the pus dragons pretty gnarly though, so it's not a perfect build, and it struggles in places like the top side of Lothric Castle, but it really rips once the boss fights get started. So, let's get to the next boss fight. The Dragonslayer Armour could ideally be a tough test against this build, as the heavy sword and full set of armor makes me a little slow, and his powerful swipes can eat through even Havel's armor, so this isn't a guaranteed win by any means. That being said, it still goes down in the first try, and we quickly get access into the Grand Archives. Hell, Wolnir's sword does so well against this guy that the butterflies only manage to get one attack off before we get the kill. Considering how many times this guy has been a hard wall in previous runs, or at least this arena, like back in the most recent randomizer playthrough, it is a bit cathartic to beat his ass this hard. Absolutely loving the Ultragunner build so far. Inside of the Grand Archives, we kill the stupid Crystal Sage copy and make our way through with very little issue. Yeah, it's definitely because I'm actually systematically clearing the area. Those deaths back in the castle before were absolutely caused by me rushing. Oh, and it looks like the NPCs have been training up their parries alongside me, since I get parried by the mage at the top, casting at me from range, parrying any attack made while the dagger is out, and the dual katana one even manages to bump me out of my attack animation before her attack even goes off. Who doesn't love the Gank Squad? Sure would be great if From Software continued to include groups like this in every fucking game from now until the heat death of the universe. Anyway, Lorien goes fine. We even managed to get the phase transition while standing on the smush at the end of the carpet, meaning we even get the AI glitch. You know, where they don't notice us right away as it transitions into phase 2. We can stand here forever and they'll never know. Of course, Bastion is too honorable to take advantage of a glitch like that. So we get Lorien's attention back on our first hit. Totally intentionally, not because I forgot how to keep him from getting aggroed. I definitely didn't forget that I needed to be more behind Lothric himself for this to work. No, but also this wouldn't have been as interesting if I took full advantage of the aggro breaking. Either way, we still get a nice first try kill on the brothers. With the ending finally open, it's time to go do the cleanup optional stuff. We run from literally everything we can see in the garden because I cannot handle that smoke and instead head straight to Oceiros. As random and crazy as his RNG can be, I've been having really good luck against Oceiros lately. Between randomizers, the Pirate vs Ninja run, and whatever else I've done to dive back down into this game, he really hasn't been able to stop me. This is another first try kill because the Ultragunner is simply too strong, and I am too goated. Between my skills in this build, I absolutely cannot. I'll stop doing that bit when it stops being funny, which it always is. Anyway, on a rematch, or two, guess who finally learned to parry Gundyr? Eventually. It really is happening. I've gone from parry novice to parry intermediate, or would it be intermediate parry? Maybe parry sophomore would be more accurate. Anyway, the point is, I'm well on my way to becoming a parry master. Maybe I'll even start to learn how to parry in Elden Ring soon. Could you imagine that? Actually having fun in Elden Ring because I know how to use one of the most powerful mechanics? Ah, a man can dream. Regardless, with Champion Gundyr dead, we can head on to Archdragon Peak. All we've got to do is get past the speed pump that is Ancient Wyvern, and I've never seen Ancient Wyvern behave so abhorrently. What even is this bug? First try, if you don't count all the deaths. Whatever, Nameless King is the real fight here anyway. Who cares about some stony chicken? My notes literally say, somehow die to King of Storms for that bit right there. I was so flabbergasted at myself for not even making it too nameless on that run that I had to include some shade at myself. Well, we still managed to die when it comes to actual nameless too, but with enough perseverance and a couple resets, we do finally get our win. Now, that is the blood-pumping adrenaline I was looking for. Damn, my heart was racing at this point, and that's only the start of DS3's massive difficulty spike towards the endgame. But to explore the depths beyond, we will have to cast off the light of the Ultragunner and condemn ourselves to ruin. Introducing the Tic-Tac, as we head into the painted world of Ariandel. We're taking the Ornstein armor for the big pauldrons on my shoulders and long tassets. Not exactly dolphins and coattails, and the color's a little too gold, but we make do with what we've got. Also, while the color is gold in most well-lit locations, the dull grays of DS3 make it appear like a steelish silver. So some locations make it totally work for the Tic-Tac. We also need the Silver Knight's helmet in order to get the Batman ears of the mech, so we farmed that for a while, and it works out pretty well actually. Finally, the Moonlight Greatsword takes the place of Wolnir's sword, which will allow me to do an approximation of the Tic-Tac's tidal wave, which is to say, its strongest attack. On our first steps into the DLC, we also pick up Snap Freeze to emulate the icy spells. Not gonna lie, this is definitely another reason this would be better done in Elden Ring, since there's way more ice spells to cast, but I didn't want to play Elden Ring. I've already got 2 massive runs planned, and I'm already having enough executive dysfunction trying to actually start on that build as is. Regardless, we respec at Rosaria, and we can head on to go kill Travis and Yeller. Don't worry, boy, I can put them down for you. Nice and peaceful-like. Was that cruel? Was that a fucked up joke to make? I wouldn't know, because I don't care. Put this boss in the ground. Gotta say, though, the Moonlight Greatsword kinda rips against NPCs. Sure, champion Gravetender for one, but also against Wilhelm. I expected him to scream. Guess I can't get everything I want. Kind of like a first try kill on Sister Friede. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To start off, did you know that you can parry Phase 1 Friede? Because I didn't, and I'm way too scared to try it in the later phases, so I cannot confirm whether or not she can still be parried once we get to the Father Ariandel duo fight. Though, once we get both of them dead, we can put our Moonlight Greatsword away while the encounter finishes, you know, for the aura. Oh. Fuck me. Yeah, she definitely kills me on the first attempt, but I do get surprisingly close. Granted, if my previous experience with Friede is any indication, it'll take way longer to actually get the kill for real this time. No way will I get this finished on my second attempt into the Black Flame phase. Oh well, would you look at that, I got it on my second attempt into the Black Flame phase. Thank the stars, I suppose. Still, that shit's got my hands shaking. Friede is tough, even when I'm using my favorite weapon of all time. This feels like one of those bosses I need to really take the time to stop and learn, but it can be rough since we have to get all the way through phases 1 and 2 to even get in there to practice Black Flame. Worries for later, I guess. For now, we need to head into the second DLC, the Ringed City. Or I guess the Dreg Heap, because I can't have anything apparently. Fine. Whatever. We can skip most of this anyway, so it's not too much of a bother. Oh, and would you look at that, the worst boss in this DLC. And it's required to get through to the rest of the good stuff. Also, yes, I understand that Halflight is after this guy, and I still stand by my previous statement. Demon Prince sucks. Normally, because it's so unforgivably tanky. Well, what do you know, I actually killed the correct demon in Phase 1. Who would have guessed that I would actually remember which one needs to go down first? I'll be honest though, as I write this script mere hours after actually finishing the run, I can't actually name the demon that needs to die first. I think it might be the demon from below, but Editor Proc will show up on screen right now to confirm or deny that statement. Thanks, Editor Me. Fun fact about this fight though, apparently magic damage goes hard against the Demon Prince. Who would have guessed? Sure hope nothing coming up is extremely resistant to it and tanky as fuck. Ah, finally in the Ringed City proper, and not that dirty Dreg Heap and its DS2 references. Blah. What a peaceful land. Run! Anyway, while we're here, we kill the Dragonslayer Armour clone for his gear. It's nice, but it's missing the pauldrons and the coattails, so even if the color is better for the Tic-Tac, the profile is like any other armor. So we'll stick with normal Ornstein gear for the remainder of the run. After the armor, Bridge Midir is a bit of a pain, but doesn't kill me, and we can head on to the next boss fight. That's a first try Halflight. Hell yeah. If I had more to say about this fight, then I would, but yeah, it's an NPC who summons 2 extra NPCs and has a broken as hell build. But the Moonlight Greatsword is even more broken, so he's barely even a speed bump. Still better than Demon Prince, I guess, but the bar is subterranean at that point, which means it's nothing but peak from here on out. Starting with Midir. So, turns out, Midir is extremely resistant to magic damage, meaning this takes a long time. Like a long time. And I die, so it takes a long time twice. I'll be honest, when we even do finally manage to get to the end of the fight and get that free critical hit or riposte or whatever you want to call it, I straight up almost shit my pants when the critical fails to get the kill right away. Like, I saw my life and another 15 minutes of fighting this tanky bastard flashing before my eyes. At least the fight itself is pretty fun, but anything can be kind of tedious when it's dragged out this long. Kind of like... Yeah, it doesn't matter whether my damage is on point or not, or if I do or don't have access to all of my abilities, this will always be the best fight in DS3, and I don't think From Software has really managed to top it. With the roleplay though, my desperate attacks versus his absolutely brutal combos that could wipe me in a second, this really does feel like Bastion versus Faulkner in the moment. Too bad we never get to see the Tic-Tac versus the Zulwarn. If that doesn't make sense, then consider this the final plug for the Retro Respect video, and your final reminder to go watch it on the second channel. I'm not asking anymore. Anyway, we've got ourselves another first try kill on Gael of all folks. Hot damn. And we are on to Soul of Cinder. Sometimes I wonder if I should be saving him for after the DLC, since it means I'll be like 20 levels too high and probably breeze through what is otherwise one of the toughest bastards in all of DS3's base game. A fantastic capstone to the game that sometimes tones down the difficulty for some of its bosses. But yeah, we're super strong, I love this weapon, and the build is absolutely goated to the point of ruin. So that's one final first try kill, which gives Bastion a record of 17 first try kills across this whole playthrough. Hot damn. It didn't even matter which ATAC he was in either. Between the Alba, Ultragunner, and Tic-Tac, this is one hell of an RP build. Some of the minor restrictions, like not being allowed to use my R2 while two-handing most of my weapons, did switch up my strats on some bosses a bit. But yeah, a smooth and breezy run. I'll be honest, this was a load of fun. A chill time with my favorite Dark Souls game, even getting more competent at parrying in it as a result. Already looking forward to my next one of these, not gonna lie. For now though, I might be needing to head down to hell and back soon, but that's a story for another time. See you soon. Hey, it's that time again. The end of the video where I invite folks to come check out the Patreon. Link in the description, and make good on the rewards for those currently pledged. Patreon members get early access to new content and their names written in the credits at the end of videos. And those who pledge in the top tiers get their names read out, like our DevBox designers, Genghis Braun, and our DevBox developers, Azul. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.